Hello, my name is back to another fashion show. I'm Jacob J. Books Corner, and today we are doing my stats and favorites wrap up. I have 5 favorites to talk about, between a 5 and a 4.5. We'll jump into that second half of the video. The first half of the video, there's going to be an image popping up on the screen. Last time I put the books, I'm in the middle of rearranging my room, so I don't actually know where all the books are. So we're just gonna skip that portion. Hopefully for the third wrap, we can do this the way my brain is envisioning, but today it's gonna be a bit more simple than even the first time. I have these wrap-ups. These wrap-ups come from Storygraph. They'll pop up on the screen, and I might point an arrow or something to tell you which part of the graph we're looking at for each one. That being said, we're gonna go through the 3 months, and we're gonna talk about some little stats about it. Then we're also gonna talk, like I said later on, about my 5 favorite books of the year. I will tell you this much: more likely one of these 5s is my favorite book of the year. I still think my favorite book is from the first quarter, but we will see at the end of the year. Also, I never did do a midpoint check-in tag, and I don't know if I'm going to. I read a lot of things goal-wise, and we're talking about goals and stuff. I'm still reading every day, which is amazing. I've been reading every day for like 100 and like a lot of days, and I am past my goal of halfway by this time. By the end of June, I was half past that, so I can't complain. Alright, that being said, let's go ahead and get started. In April, I read 26 books, 7,175 pages with an average rating of 3.58 stars and 30 days accumulated. I read every single day of April. It's going to be a very nice little stat we're going to talk about here in a minute. However, like last quarter, I did want to check and see what was my number 1 day. So if we go to April, it was for April showers, and I don't love it, but this is what April looks like. And you can see there's a clear winner here. That's the timeline looks like for all the books. The clear winner was April 2nd. I read 1,253 pages, which culminated to 6 books. I think it's 5 books, but around here I think I was reading 1 until I finished the other day. And I do count those books as following. This is by far one of the highest reading days I've had all year, and I'm really grateful for them. The next one we're going to talk about is May. May was a phenomenal reading month towards like number of books I read. Everything else kind of just like dwindled. You're going to see the star rating is actually not that bad this month. That's because there's like 17 to 19 books I did not rate this month. So it's a high rating for no ratings this quarter. By the way, in May I read 40 books, which equated to 7,745 pages, because a lot of these books were like 40 pages, so it doesn't bring a lot of pages to you either. The average rating was a 3.75 for the books I did end up rating, and it was a 31 by 31. Like, I read every day. The books I read this month, that were majority of my reading, I didn't like. So if I would have rated them, they would have been really, really low, between 1s and 2s. But because of the type of books they were, I didn't really feel comfortable rating them, and it was for a video that never came out, which is also very annoying. But I did read a lot for that purpose. It was all about sunshine. This is what May spread looked like. These are all the books you can see. If you watch my wrap-up, you know kind of like what we were doing and why. That being said, I read the most pages on May 9th. That was 1,076 pages, and I read 5 books. That's all the stats I got for you that. Moving on to June. June was an okay reading month. Like, it's about my average. I'm gonna say my average for a month is between 23 and 27 books. Somewhere in there is normally where I land if I'm not trying to achieve a goal, or if I'm not trying to hit a number or something. It's between 23 and 25 books. 23, 26, 27 books, whatever the number was. And so I read 25 books, which was in that average, which equated to 7,509 pages. I want to talk about how 40 books was only 200 pages more. That's how much of a difference it was when I was reading nothing but short little things. Kind of crazy. It was a 3.78 stars, and so like the average rating this quarter was like a 3.5 or a 3.6, because almost every month I read about the same amount of average, which is also kind of crazy. I read every day of the month as well, which once again, that does equate to like reading a few pages on the weekend, like I mentioned last time. Just to read every day does not necessarily mean you have to read a lot of pages every day. I do plan on doing maybe some challenges where I'm trying to read like 100 pages every day for a week or something. I don't know. We will see. June was obviously gay because it's Pride Month. This is what the timeline looks like. You can't see a clear winner here because it was so mixed, in my opinion. Like, I had so many books. Like, I had so many days where it was just about 700 pages, which is kind of crazy. Which means that the top 700 page day was on June 15th, which is 736 pages, and that was 4 books. Now, let's jump into overall stats and ratings. I typically want to, like, next time we'll do something really fun for this, but I'm just going to tell you the overall stats. I read 91 books this this quarter, which I'm very, very excited about. That's equates to a book a day if we're talking about it in a standpoint of me reading every day, because I've read 91 days, which is crazy. Was not the plan, was not the intention, but I'm not mad. Then I also read 22,429 pages, which I'm also very, very happy about. Like I said earlier, the average star rating between all of this is like a 3.6, somewhere around there. And if we jump into the actual star ratings, I read 21 books that I did not rate. These are between short story collections and that collection of stories that I did not rate at all, that I would have rated poorly if I should have. And a part of me feels like I should go back and rate those poorly, but also like I didn't care enough. I had 0 1 stars, which is beautiful. I had 9 2 stars, which is not ideal. 33 stars, which is also not ideal. 21 4 stars, crazy, and 6 5 stars. And a few of these 5 stars, I'm not gonna lie to you, were rereads, so they don't even count, which is annoying. That being said, we're going to jump over into my favorite section. There is a spoiler here for a video, so if you care about my 5-star predictions, I would probably recommend jumping to the second book, but if you don't care, I read Emily Henry's newest release, Great Big Beautiful Life, and it fucking worked for me. It did not fucking work for a lot of people, apparently, and that's okay. She's a very high popular artist, and so her work is being read by a bunch of people. I do kind of agree, this maybe is more women's literature fiction than romance. However, I think the romance in this is fucking perfect, so no complaints. It's about 2 people who are competing for the same job. This woman was a famous actress, and essentially she hunted her down, and he also hunted her down, and she's wanting to write a memoir. And part of that process is they have a 30-day trial where they ask as many questions as possible to get started on this book, and whoever puts the best presentation forward wins. However, it's a very sweet and cute little romance between the two that is very spicy. This is by far the most spiciest book Emily Henry has ever written, and I adored it. I adored every part of it. I enjoyed the story within the story about this person who is not real. I enjoyed every aspect of this. This was a 5-star read. I loved it. Could not recommend more. Is it my favorite Emily Henry? No, I don't think so. Well, here's the thing. My favorite Emily Henry, I still think is like a 4.5. So I don't really know what was wrong with me when I read that. And then the first one we have for a graphic novel, I think this is the only one that is a graphic novel, which is another 5, which is Spectators. Spectators is Brian K. Vaughan's like one-offs. He does these every once in a while, and I absolutely adored it as well. It follows this woman and this guy. She is brutally murdered in the beginning of the novel in a very intense and graphic way, or graphic, in the beginning of the graphic novel, and she becomes a spectator on the world. And then we jump very much forward in time when the world's kind of going into chaos. The threatening of World War III going on, and people are doing all these crazy things. This is an extreme adult graphic novel, 18 plus 10 times, but I adored the conversations that were had. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the artwork, I enjoyed how edgy it truly was. It's 5 stars. Beautiful. I think it's out. If it's not out, it's coming out relatively soon. I read this way in advance, so I want to say it's out because it was being promoted at the back of a Saga issue I just read, so I feel like it's out. The next 3 are 4.5 stars, so just keep that in mind. I don't have a takeaway. I would say Spectators and Great Big Beautiful Life are the only 2 that could possibly pop up on a top 10 in the future. All the other ones are just fun books I'm excited to tell you about. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame. This is a novella fantasy novel, sapphic fantasy. This is about a dragon hunter. When she is about 6 or 7 years old, she ends up cutting off the head of a dragon, and she is sent into a guild because that is what her father thinks that he has to do. So when he sends her into this guild, they train her to become a warrior and become a phenomenal dragon slayer. That being said, there are a few very particular rules. You can't pick up relationships, you cannot take off your helmet, and you go where you are told. She is told to go home because there is apparently a threat of a dragon. No one's ever seen this dragon, but she is there for when the dragon does appear to kill it, so this place can feel safe again. When she is there, she ends up meeting a princess because she is part of royalty wherever she goes. She was with the highest up, so she can get that best information, and she ends up really falling for this princess, and it's twisty and dark and like brooding, and it's beautiful. And I love the romance. There's parts of this I don't like. Can't really get into that without spoilers. But also, I'd like to say that if you read the synopsis, I would have a hard time recommending it. I personally feel like, even though the thing that happens in here, one of the bigger twists in the novel, is pretty forthcoming, like I feel like you could probably see it really far away, I still think it's better not knowing what it is and not trying to figure it out, and not being like your head being like, oh, is this it? Is this it? Just for the simple fact that like there's elements of the story that work better with a bit of a surprise, and in my opinion, the synopsis gives away too much. Next we're going to talk about is No Body, No Crime. This is also another sapphic romance, or a lesbian romance. These are both lesbian romances. Essentially, we have two people. One has been on the run since she was a teenager. One has been in love with her since she was a teenager. Essentially, they partially, maybe, possibly killed someone as a kid and as a teenager, like after prom and stuff together. And then they start a relatively romantic relationship for the rest of their senior year, and then this girl disappears. Her whole family doesn't know where she's at, and this other girl ends up becoming a PI, and she has told herself over and over again that she will not hunt for this woman because she has been told she doesn't want to be found. Like, she has this feeling that this girl doesn't know. And then at the request of a dying man, she is forced to go hunt for her. It's action-packed, it's sexy, it's brooding, it's everything you would want in a story like this, except for the fact I wish it was a bit bigger. I don't know if bigger is the right word. There's something about it that's a little off, which is why it's a 4.5. I loved it though. I would highly recommend it. I think it's super fun. It's a great book. It is, I would say, a suspense thriller with a little bit of action, an action suspense thriller with a little bit of romance. The romance is very key to the story, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, so I wouldn't just like categorize it as like a suspense romance. Maybe I would. I don't know. And then lastly, the last one we're going to talk about is Sky Daddy. Sky Daddy, I'm sure, is going to like piss some people off. It's on this list, but I liked it, okay? I know a lot of people didn't like Sky Daddy because of the uncomfortableness of it all. But I had to reward a book for going there when they said they want to. That's just what my thought process is. And I think the evolution of the characters is perfect, and I love the little key information about all these different planes and why she was doing all this stuff. So what is Sky Daddy about? This is about a woman who has a fixation, a fetishization of planes is the word I was looking for. She gets off on planes. She wants to ride a plane, okay? One person wouldn't even solely admit to say that she kind of does in a way. As well. I'll let you read the story and figure out if you can figure out what I mean by that. And essentially, she also has this fascination with death. In particular, she believes people who die on planes are what the plane declares as their soulmate. So this is obviously a very controversial and triggering topic. If this is not for you, I completely understand. It worked for me though. I thought it was really fascinating. The way her mind was letting her adjust this reality that I don't really think you should be adjusting to, but I can totally see where she was coming from. And so I was not offended at all while reading this. However, I read really horrendous things sometimes, so like it's hard to offend me in like that regard. That being said, the story takes some big swings, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't. It is also, I would say, a very exhausting read. This main character has a single goal in mind, and she learns about manifestation and there's also these other characters that I would declare very unlikable throughout the entire experience as well. So overall, you do have to kind of pick your battles when reading it and what you like and what you don't like. I love a novel that says this is what they want to do, and most novels will pull away from the result if it's too much or whatever. And this author went full kilter, which I just fucking adored. Sky Daddy was great. I would highly recommend Sky Daddy. All these books I would recommend. I think there's something to take away from all of them, even if they were not perfect masterpieces in my opinion. Because once again, I don't think a 5-star equals a perfect masterpiece. I kind of like playing with the idea of 6 stars. Like something that is so good that you're like, nothing can touch it. Like, it's so perfect. Because a lot of 5 stars are like beautiful and you enjoy them and you're having a great time, but they're not always like perfect, if that makes sense. But you can't think of rating it anything less. I don't know if that makes any sense. That being said, that is the SAT video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.